In this video, I want to go a little bit further into the native MQTT connectivity that's been added to the latest release of FactoryTalk Optix version 1.5. Again, the version 1.5 release came out towards the end of October 2024. And looking at the release notes, you go to the question mark and choose release notes. We can see that under system features, under data connectivity, native MQTT support is now included. It provides an embedded broker as well as a client that can be either a publisher or a subscriber. In the last video I showed how we could use that embedded MQTT broker, and I was able to publish a variable that was inside my Optix application to the embedded broker, and then a remote MQTT client or subscriber could use that embedded broker to see the value. In this video, I want to make I'm going to make that same application into a publisher, but this time publish to a remote MQTT broker. So to do this, I'm just going to use the cloud version of HiveMQ. And if HiveMQ provides a free little bit of a sandbox, a serverless cluster in the HiveMQ Cloud. It gives you 100 connections for free, 10 gigabytes of data traffic per month. So, maybe you're not going to be using this for production systems, but this is going to be good for me to test. If you are interested in additional cloud offerings from HiveMQ, then you can see there's starter and enterprise levels. And once you create your cluster, you'll get your own kind of URL, kind of like what I have here. Got a port set up, the default port 8883. If I choose manage cluster, the only other thing I need to do is I need to create a user that can access this. So if I look at my credentials, I've created a user and I've named that user Hive user, and I went ahead and gave publish and subscribe permissions to this user. In this case, probably I'm going to, we could create a user that might be a subscribe only, and then perhaps another user that would be publishing. But in this case, I'm just going to have one user that has both privileges or permissions. Okay, so that's all I had to do to set up this cloud environment. Again, it was completely free and nothing to do. Once you create your cluster, all this stuff gets generated automatically, and you just got to create your user or users and their permissions. So once I do that, I come back to my MQTT client. So to get to this point, if didn't watch the previous video I did, we're going to right click on MQTT, which is now a new item underneath the project view in version 1.5. I'm going to choose an MQTT client. I've already got that set up here, MQTT client 1. When I do that, if I go to the properties of that MQTT client 1, I need to just put a few things in here. One, I need to put the broker address. So that is basically that link that I had back in the HiveMQ Cloud. So I'm going to copy paste that link, and I'm going to use the default the port number. In this case, it defaulted to 8883, which is the same port I was using there in the HiveMQ Cloud. You can leave the current the client ID alone or rename it if you wish. I am going to make sure that the SSL security is enabled. I'm going to turn off my validate broker certificate, and if I kind of stretch this out a little bit, maybe do a better job of showing some of the terminology here. So this is a validate broker certificate. I'm going to go ahead and leave that as a false. I'm not going to use a certificate just for this demonstration. So don't need to worry about these certificate files since I'm not going to use a certificate. And the other thing I got to do is I'm going to change From anonymous, user identity type was defaulted to anonymous. I'm going to change it to username and password, and I'm going to enter that username that I created at the HiveMQ Cloud, which I called mine Hive user, and I enter my password. So that sets up the client, but I still got to go and set up the publisher. So to do that, if you wouldn't have this here yet, I would right click on client, say new publisher. When I click on publisher, I'm essentially going to basically telling it what am I publishing. So and then first we could choose what is the sampling mode. Your options are none, periodic, or change in value. And I'm going to go with change in value still for this. The folder is where I'm going to read the variable or variables that I want to publish. In this case, I'm just going to use the model folder that was already created. I created one tag or one variable underneath the model folder and called it tank1 level. And then I can choose the QoS, the quality of service setting. MQTT allows for these three settings, 0, 1, or 2. I'm going to leave it as 2. And the last setting here is a retain functionality, either true or false. I'll leave it false for this. And that's pretty much all I need to do. I'm going to go ahead and start my emulator. And that will now bring up my demo application that I was using previously. You can see that my level is set to 13. Right? And there's nothing really to see at the moment. So what I'll do first is I'm going to bring back up my other utility, other program that you can download for free, and that's called MQTT Explorer. This allows you to kind of just test out that connection. This will become a like an MQTT client or subscriber, basically. So I'm going to, I've already created a connection, called it HiveMQ Cloud, and I've copied in my link to my instance or my cluster. The port number is 8883. I've entered my credentials for my user and my username and password. I've disabled the validate certificate and I've enabled the encryption, and I can say connect. And now as I change my data, you can see I get my tank1 level. Value is 19, level is 19. Change that number again, and we can see that we're going to get some historical trending happening down here, right? So again, I'm updating based on change. So this number is only going to update when I actually change this value. So this is great. We show that one, Optix is actually connected to that cloud broker, passing data up to the cloud broker, and I have a subscriber that can also connect to that cloud broker and get information. Now, what I want to do next is I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this and turn that off. I'm going to leave this application running. Now, this just happens to be in a virtual machine that I have running here. So this virtual machine is connected to the internet and passing data up to the cloud. So for the moment, I'm going to just minimize this, and I'm going to bring up an Optix application that's actually running on my host machine or my desktop. And in this case, I want to make this application that's on my desktop a subscriber to that cloud broker and get that tank level and displayed here. Now, in the Optix application that's sitting there in the virtual machine, I added a MQTT client, and then I added a publisher. In this case, I'm going to add the client and then add an MQTT subscriber. So for this demonstration, I had to create an MQTT client, just like I did before. Right click on the MQTT object here, or item, and choose new client. And then I get this client 1. And I set up my client credentials very much like I did in the just a few minutes ago. I have a broker address. That's that same link to the HiveMQ Cloud. I have the port. I have a client ID. I did go ahead and change this from a 1 to a 2 just to make it something unique. Since I already had the FT Optix-1 was created in the publishing application on my virtual machine. I've enabled the SSL security. I've disabled the certificate validation, and I did the same change the user identity type from anonymous to username and password, and then I entered my HiveMQ username and password that I created, Hive user, and then my password. Then I would right click and I would say new subscriber, and I get my MQTT subscriber 1 gets created here. And this is the new part that we haven't seen yet. And I need to basically set up a few properties for this subscriber. One, I need to tell it what topic am I subscribing to. So when I had created my publisher, I chose the topic name to be Tank 1. So I'm going to basically subscribe to that same topic name, Tank 1. I need to choose the folder that the data that I receive from the broker, where does it go to? In this case, I'm going to go ahead and use the model folder again, just to put the value in that folder. And then I have my QoS setting, which again can be 0, 1, or 2. It's set to 0 right now. I think I can go ahead and keep it at that. And then the last thing I did was I did have to create a variable that name matched what was coming off the broker. So I had a back on my other application, I was publishing a variable called Tank1Level, and publish that to the broker. So now I'm going to subscribe to that broker, and I'm going to bring it down and put it into a variable called Tank1Level. And then the only other thing we did at this point was I created basically went to the main window, added a label just to get the value, to read the value of Tank1Level. All right. So again, this is sitting on my host computer. I'm going to go ahead and start up my emulator. Nope, that came open in the other window, so there, pull it into here. All right, so right now it is reading 0, but there has been no update. So if I come back to my virtual machine, you can see that we have a value of 39. And let me pull up the emulator from my desktop, right? So this is the screen I just created. So if I were to change the number here, I do get 22 here. Let me try to minimize this just to make it a little bit easier to read, perhaps. All right, so let me bring this emulator back up. So we can get a number 38. Get 38. All right, so basically proving that one, Optix, the native MQTT, the new MQTT native connectivity, I can basically publish from one Optix application, send it up to a cloud broker perhaps, or any broker for that matter. It doesn't really matter. It could be the embedded broker or a third-party broker, and then have another application, Optix application, acting as an MQTT subscriber to pull that data in from the broker. So just found that kind of interesting. I wanted to show that real quick. One that was very easy to set up, very limited amount of configuration required. just some basic information about the broker and the broker credentials, and setting up, what variables we want to publish and, of course, subscribe to. So again, new to version 1.5 Optix, the native MQTT connectivity capabilities.